keep moving so we don't keep going. I'd like to introduce our friend Liz Hahn.
Hi. Hi. We are going to talk about loans and the money, where you're going to get this money. So I know a little bit about this subject, but before that, about me and who I am. I'm a fellow artist, performer, creative, also a burner. I've been an event producer since 1991. I bought my first production company out when I was 21 years old. I'm also a chronic entrepreneur. I have built over 16 different businesses. Business is art to me. I'm an artist since I was a kid, and this is what I do. So, and business is my medium. There I am at the finance side of me. In 2004, I left working in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, and I decided to launch another business. So I started a recruiting company in the finance industry. I started recruiting regional vice presidents and wholesale account executives for some of the largest lenders in the US at that time. GMAC, Wells Fargo, Countrywide, and a bunch of other banks that don't exist anymore because they are gone with the market. I became a licensed realtor in 2004 as well. And then I kind of recruited myself into working for GE Money, which at the time was WMC Wholesale. Sorry. WMC at the time was subprime mortgage, which just meant people with not so good credit. We loaned down to people with a 580 credit score up to 620. At that time, I sold $75 million worth of subprime loans in those 2 years, and I did help crash the market. So I know the market inside and out. I know it from a secondary market standpoint, meaning that I know what the investors are looking for on in Wall Street. When we wrote loans, they had to go to a place, and then they had to get written off and underwritten and then sold to Wall Street. And then I worked with brokers directly who then sold their loans to people like you. So now I'm on the other side. I help sell loans to people like you who want to create and want to get funding. Everyone heard of opium? Other people's money, not an opium den. This is what I help you get, is securing other people's money, meaning banks' money. They're there to loan money to you, and I help you secure that. My goal for you is kind of to keep your life savings in your bank account. You need that money. You might need it for a down payment. You might need it for permitting, like what Yona was talking about with the yurt. You might need it in case your car breaks down or something else. So try to stay liquid. That's kind of a really important goal, especially for us as artists. You know, maybe we want to create something. We need a quick $1,000 to create a project. So stay as liquid as you can and borrow as much as you can. It's a great time to borrow money right now. We are in a down market. We really are, and interest rates are low, and that's why it's a great time. Also, housing prices came down, which I think that's what this slide is, yes. What I just said, mortgage rates are at an all-time low. They were at 18% sometime in the 80s. When I was working in subprime, I was selling loans at 8%, second loans on the back 12%, 13%, 6% loans. Those are pretty high. Now we're refining people into 3.5%, 3.25%, 4.5%. Just depends on your project, depends on your credit, depends on if you're doing a 4-unit. Like Emerald Village is a 4-unit, so that's going to refinance differently than, say, just a single-family residence, just as far as the interest rates go, and as far as your loan-to-value goes. And you can ask me later about what all that would look like and what this means. But right now, using opium is practically free money. I also suggest when I bring people into doing mortgages to do a 30-year fixed if you can. We have no idea what interest rates are going to look like in 10 years. If you do a 10-1 ARM, meaning after 10 years it's going to adjust, that interest rate in 10 years, if you want to refi, could be 12%. That's not going to be so fun if you're at a 3.5% right now. So I suggest, stay long-term, do 30 years. I know it's kind of permanent. I freak out on 30 years. I don't know where I'm going to be in 30 years. I don't want to be somewhere for 30 years. What are you talking about? But I've been in San Diego now for 22 years. That's practically, I'm almost done there. So you get it. So just stay secure, stay liquid, keep your money in your pocket so you can just, flow and flow. That's what it's all about, is flowing and creating, because you guys are artists and creators. Good markets. Good for you, down markets. Good for you, good for me. Not down for me. As mentioned, with down markets that we had in 2007 when the mortgage collapse started to come on, in 2008 and so forth, we started to see a lot of inventory come up onto the market. We started to see a lot of short sales. We started to see a lot of REO, which is bank-owned real estate, which they don't even release to the market because if they just oversaturate the market, it'll completely mess up our economy. And they're hanging out there. But because we crashed the market, and I was one of the pieces that helped, we're now able to afford the houses that we wouldn't be able to afford in 2005. A house in 2005 that was $675,000 might be worth $250,000. Big jump. Now we can actually afford it with an interest rate that we can get at. Interest rates here, I believe it's kind of blurry, but I believe that's 2007. It says it's about 7% in that little spike at the bottom, and now we're at around 3.5%, 4%. So interest rates are down. So it's a really good time because we are in a down market, and which means, and you've all heard this somewhere maybe, but you buy low and sell high. So right now is the time to buy low and get your dream created while we're in this down market. And I do believe it's going to stay down as far as interest rates for a chunk of time. Not forever, but for a chunk of time. And in San Diego, as far as housing prices go, it's really spotty. There's some areas where housing prices are going up, like in La Costa where I live, and then there's some areas where it's going down, 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 and it's just not going anywhere. So it's really spotty. It's not across the board. And that's just in Southern California. So every area is different. So keep that in mind when you're looking. This is a duplicate. We already did this. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the different types of loans that are out there. An FHA loan, it's for first-time home buyers. You can put as little as 3.5% down. What that means, you have a $400,000 house, $14,000 down. You split that up with 4 people, you guys can do the math. FHA loan limits right now for San Diego, those are our loan limits on a 1-unit or 1-house SFR, 2-unit, 3-unit, or 4-unit. And when you get with Yona, he can break all those numbers down for you and what that looks like and what that would look like for your community that you want to bring in and what that'll cost per person, because you'll also have taxes and insurance on that as well. I highly recommend to actually get pre-qualified early. What that means, Yona mentioned earlier the unified loan application, otherwise known in the industry as a 1003. We call it the 1003 exercise, and I will be emailing this packet to y'all. The 1003 exercise is where you're going to fill out the loan application. That's actually something that you would hand a bank or a lender or your friendly mortgage consultant, me. And this will have every piece of information on there: name, address, social security, birth date, how many kids you have. We also want to see your bank accounts, how much you have in your 401k, your IRA. It'll show your liabilities. How much debt are you in? What do you owe on your car? Did you buy the Beamer? Do you own a Lamborghini? Do you own nothing? Are you off grid? Are you on grid? And the 1003 exercise is really good. It's an excellent tool for transparency for those who want to create collectively and in community. And as Yona touched upon, like maybe someone who has $1 million in the bank doesn't want to share that, but maybe your friend who has $20 in the bank might need to know, well, hey, you want to actually see what everyone is at in their life and where you're at. And everything is okay where you're at. It's just where you're at. And you want to get that on paper. Because I'm actually, or a friendly mortgage broker or someone else or the bank is going to look at that on paper, and they need to see that. Where we're at in the industry is everything needs to be traceable. There's no more stated loans. Stated meaning I state your income and state your assets and kind of like push this loan through and fund you. That's where I was in 2005. That does not exist. We need to see that you have an income, that you have some decent assets so you could pay back the loan if you needed to. We also want to see what your liabilities are. We want to see what your debt to income ratio is, otherwise known as DTI, and make sure you fit in this perfect little pocket that the banks want to see. And I can help structure that so it can work, especially if you're working in a collective. It's really, really a sweet deal. Home path mortgage. This is we could do 3%, thank you for highlighting that. 3% down in a home path mortgage. Now it needs to be a home path House by Fannie Mae, and I believe Yona has a home path house he'll be showing you all later. It's really flexible. Allows the down payments to be funded by gifts, grants, nonprofits, or employer, which is really great. It's for a primary or secondary or investment. The difference between secondary and investment is if you're going to invest in making a rental property. Secondary is if I live here in San Diego and I have a house in Big Bear. There's also the HUD 203K, which I believe is the next slide, actually. Yes, HUD 203K. What this is if you come along a house that you think needs repair in the kitchen, or you want to tear out the kitchen, or you want to redo the bathroom, you can actually apply for a loan through HUD on the HUD 203K loans to get certified contractors who will give you bids on what it's going to cost to kind of upgrade this house. So it kind of gives you a little incentive and hope. And they do have to be HUD-approved loans, HUD-approved houses as well. And they're sweet, and I can do those loans. I can definitely do those loans. They're a little tricky, but they can get done. VA loan. There are some VAs that we know in this room. They can get up to 100% financing, no down payment, which is awesome. I just did one for a fellow friend, gave him a 100% financing loan. Borrow up to $750,000 or 1.1 on multiple units. This is a sweet deal. 100% financing has not existed in a really long time. I remember when I was working for GE in January of 2007, and all of my loans, my entire pipeline was 100% financing, 80-20s, meaning 80%, 20%. And they said, we're no longer doing 100% financing. We're only going to go to 95%. And I'm like, my God, that's my entire pipeline. If they take away 100% financing, we're not going to be able to fund loans, which means we're not going to be able to sell houses, which means we're going to crash perhaps the market, which means we're going to crash the entire economy. My boss thought I was insane, but I guess I might have kind of put the pieces together. But now we can do 100% financing if you are VA. Seller carry loans. Yona is an expert at seller carry loans, and he will talk about that.
Yeah, it's just awesome. You can take the bank out of the picture. The seller will finance all or part of the loan. Can negotiate interest type of payments, lengthen down payment. So you can pretty much negotiate anything you want. The bank's got a really specific scenario they want you to fit into, and you could really create a contract with the seller that says, look, give me this place for no interest, give me a year no payments, I'm going to create something beautiful. Year 2, I'll pay 3% on my money. Year 3, I'll pay 7%. Year 4, 10. Year 5, 15%. You know, and a seller might be, great, I haven't moved this property in a year and a half. It cost me $6,000 or $7,000 just to maintain the property. You'll take it over. You'll pay me money every month. And if you go a certain number of years and you haven't refinanced out of it, you're going to give me a large interest rate. Sounds great with you knowing that you want to refinance out of there before. You know, maybe you just negotiated yourself into a first year completely free, don't pay anything, and then you get another loan. It's also possible to get a really horrible deal. If you ever see lease to own out there on Craigslist, oh great, lease to own is pretty much a ripoff for you. I wouldn't do it, and you know, if you're going to go through that process, you could just set yourself up for failure. You could put $100,000 down and then put yourself in a contract that you can't get out of, and then they're just like the bank. You know, once you stop making payments or haven't made a balloon payment, if you haven't paid the rest after 3 years or whatever, they can go through the foreclosure process, 3 months, and it's theirs. We have this loan, and I love it, and it's a great opportunity. I think there's lots of properties all over the country that people are sitting on. Grandma, grandpa passed away, kids live states away, and it just sits there, and no one's buying it. Great opportunity to have someone come on there and take it over.
Another thing that's cool about the seller carry is it buys you time. If you do a seller carry, you not necessarily, if you don't fit into bank guidelines, maybe it'll give you time to get your community together to fit bank guidelines. Maybe someone will get a job in those 3 years that, oh, hey, I can qualify to do this loan into traditional financing, so it's not stuck in a sell and carry on a short term. So it's a sweet spot. You can still gain your property with this type of loan, and then also at this same time prepare yourself financially with money and jobs and stuff like that, so you look good on paper to get a traditional loan. Creative financing. And you too talked about this too, so I'll bring you back up.
Yeah, you could do anything. That's why a lot of these statements that Liz and I have been saying, I don't want you to say like, this is a difficult loan, there's some problems, be careful. Like, you know, if you're gonna buy 8 houses in 8 months without a bank loan, you gotta get creative. So I think there's lots of solutions. One, these are just some ideas. Your parents could take a home equity line of credit out on their house, it's paid off, it's a ranch, and they love your business plan. Like, this makes a lot of sense. Their parents are gonna borrow money at 3.5% and loan it to you in 5.5%, and they own the property, really. You own the property, but they're your mortgager. Like, they're making 2% on their money that was sitting in their house that they weren't using, for their kids who are doing a great project. Worst case scenario, the parents have the house, they sell it, everything goes, you know, and they were making 2% on money that was just sitting there the whole time. Self-directed IRA, so if someone has been working, regular job and has $200,000-300,000 in IRA, there are ways to use your IRA and self-directed. I will use, instead of buying stocks, I'm going to use that. But there are, you got to get specific in how you do that. Create a business plan, bid investors and angel funding. Bid, I run into people quite often who are investing $150,000 up to $1 million in community projects. And they're like, yeah, we want to do this. One I was talking to, he lives up in San Francisco, wanted to go out to, I think, Grass Valley area. He just wanted to, he's like, I want to put my money in a project out of town, be able to go somewhere. And in case everything goes to hell, I want to be able to go to country property and live out my days, And so there's a lot of people who would love to invest in this stuff, but if you have a nice business plan, it'll work out. You could assume the mortgage on a pre-foreclosure, maybe, again, more difficult, and lots of different ways to create a finance. So don't just think you need to get a bank loan. Go ahead and assume that there's lots of ways to make this happen for yourself.
Perfect. Which brings us to the business plan. Emerald Village, aka Evo, is set up as an LLC. That works really, really good for them. Now, what that is essentially a business. And you have accountability to, their 10 partners have accountability to one another, just like you're formulating a business for yourself. So if you take 3 sculptors together and you create an LLC, now you're accountable for this business. Let's just say it's a sculpture that you want to create, and you have accountability and who's going to do what, and that's, say, formulated under the LLC. You can do the same thing with real estate. You can formulate an LLC. You can become a business. You can get real transparent with your 1003 exercise, know who owns what, who has what leveraging capital. You can create agreements inside of this LLC, inside of this business, inside of this thing that is now going to be your art. You all remember the dot-com boom. Venture capitalists funded all kinds of dot-coms to raise money to launch these great businesses. Well, right now we're in kind of an interesting real estate boom. It's kind of almost underground. It's like some people are like, oh, the real estate market dropped. Some are like, no, like us. We're like, no, it's actually there, it's alive, and we can do it. So formulating that LLC actually might give you a leveraging tool that might entice some real estate investors, some people who have some liquid cash that made maybe a lot of money in the dot-com boom or a lot of money in the last real estate boom. And maybe they see the value and they want someone with vision, who is creative, someone who has some inertia to create something really awesome on this 10 acres with a sculpture garden, or maybe put a dance theater in there. So right now is a really good time to get in and also to get creative. And putting it in the LLC format and or a business format really helps accountability. It really, really, really does. It creates that structure. It's an outside entity of yourself. It's no longer Liz Hahn owns this property, but it's Bali Venture Capital owns this property, and that's something over there, and that's my Bali retirement thingamajig that I've created over there. So it creates an entity outside of yourself.
Also, the LLC structure is just, you know, if you come in as a community and you're doing consensus-based agreements and whatnot, as an LLC, you can throw all the operating agreements. We just had that. We have 2 members leaving. We just did that last night. We're like, let's review what we agreed on a few years ago. What are the rules at this moment when things are getting tough? So having all those, the LLC to help you with that process is great. And an LLC, holding that LLC in there versus holding as a nonprofit or other things, an LLC just, for community and for everybody owning actual shares, instead of like, it's difficult, I can just sell my share. We can just like move shares in that manner. So it does, you know, we organize and communicate in one way, but externally we have an LLC to support us.
Yeah, I love it. And I would also, in this process, maybe get in touch with a business attorney. SCORE, I don't know if y'all heard of it. It's a free entrepreneurial advice place here in San Diego. There's one downtown San Diego and there's one in Carlsbad. It's called SCORE. But you can kind of ask how to structure your business. They'll give you tons of free advice. You could get a real estate attorney. You probably don't need that right now unless you're selling off like parcels or whatnot. You might want to talk to someone like that. You also want to talk to a CPA or a financial planner. Let's see if this slide will go. There it goes. So basically, business is art. And you guys are all artists. You're creating your life every day. And if you want to envision your life, envision your home, envision your community, sit with that. What does that look like for you in your mind's eye? And know and trust that you can create that through a collaboration, through a collective, that it is completely and totally possible. It really, really is. Your home, your creative flow, your land, the structures, the people that you want to live with. Business is art, and art is business. And I just know you guys can do this, and it's just so right there. And we are so here for you to help you through this process. Definitely. And there will be lots of questions, but the time is now. And if you're waiting for the sign from the universe, this is it. Now go big. Any questions? April.
How do the financing tools that you described apply to an LLC? For instance, if 10 artisans wanted to create an LLC, would they be with a VA loan and some of the sounded more personal financing tools? How would that apply to an LLC structure? Or are there different tools for that?
Great question. So the question is how does the LLC structure apply to traditional financing? The answer to that question is that there are lenders that will lend to an LLC. Certain lenders. It might not be certain FHA guidelines, but there are different conventional loans that will lend to an LLC. Another thing you can do if you guys are formulated inside of an LLC is you can pull 2 or 3 members outside of that LLC in what's called a quitclaim deed, pull them out, refinance them into a traditional loan, or finance them into a traditional loan, and then put them back into the quitclaim deed, and now they're back into the LLC.
Basically, the process is buy it as a normal, like we're a group of 10 people, let's buy this property. And then as the 10 people, we've made an agreement that after we move on to the property, after we own it, we're gonna give it to our LLC. And another reason to have LLC is the structure. You have home ownership rights as a homeowner that could get kind of, you know, I as a homeowner, if we all own this property, I don't have to pay rent. Like as long as the mortgage is getting paid, it makes it difficult for evictions or other stuff. But if we give it all to the LLC, of which we're all owners, now I'm a renter, I'm leasing from an LLC, and it just makes an easier standard. So the process of having an LLC as a structure is great. Buying with all these programs is not as easy. But you just give it to the LLC after.
And there is a program that I know about that when you formulate an LLC, they'll help you go through the whole system, setting up your entire business, and even help you get your Dun & Bradstreet number. And then you can go shop it to these private investors, which could lend onto that. And that could be your nice down payment for that. And once you get your down payment, then you can go through the next chunks down there. I did see another hand.
If a member of, let's say there's 10 people, and the LLC should also shield the other 9 people from any kind of legal repercussions from the bank as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have, that's what you set up your operating agreements. We sat down and tried to think of all the issues that we would run into as a community. And we have the ability at any moment to add more operating agreements. Shielding, yeah, we as an LLC own the property. We all own shares. The LLC itself, limited liability, shields itself in so many ways. So, the process is just to, it just gives us an easier vehicle to, we have 2 members leaving, they can just now sell their shares, and we've made an agreement that they can't just sell their shares to anybody. We have time to find the right match, but in the end, we can always fall back to the LLC structure.
How do you evaluate those shares at 3 years after the initial creation of the LLC?
How do you value? Well, one, you just, all the money you put in, you value it. We've made an agreement not to, as a community, you can either take value in the land and say, oh great, we're going to sell this for $2 million, $3 million down the road, or you can say, look, we don't want to make this too expensive. There's communities that try to keep the value down, and so we've made it so you can't necessarily just sell your share for more, or maybe there's a percentage more. And right now how we value it is how much money did you put down, how much money, we have owner fees every month, an extra owner's fees, all that money. We just put in a new pool heater, we all just split the check, that money, and so that $11,000 we started with is now, a few years later, is $20,000. And so that is, we just keep track through our taxes of what we actually put into it, and then also decide, is this now, I put 2 years, 3 years of my life into this, and 20 grand, but you're coming into a community that is obviously now successful and grounded. Maybe it's worth more, to the next member, but also how much can you sell, and who you want to bring in a wide variety of people who can afford the property.
Have you ever worked with package deals with nonprofits that do shared income?
I have not worked with a nonprofit, but I could research it for you and get back to you on that.
Basically, VA loans, how would that work if the group is buying properties now? So do you make some kind of agreement with these 10 people or whatever, and then you pre-approve for a loan as the 10 people, use the veteran?
With a VA loan, the person who is the VA would qualify for that loan. As that individual, and you could put probably another person that's qualifying for income. Did you have something you wanted to add to it?
Yeah, there's specifics in there under the VA loan, but you can, as a veteran, I can buy property with 2 non-veterans and then split that in certain ways, and I'm paying a third, 100% financing for a third. The others may have to come in with other financing. And in the end, you can make a contract with the veteran. I could come in, I say I can come in and buy it, but I need to be able to, if I want to buy $1 million place, I need to have the income. So now it's really on just one veteran, but that veteran can come in, buy the place larger, and then make an agreement with everybody else to kind of switch that over and make it shared ownership, quit claim it to other people, change the loan later. But that process of initially getting the property at 100% financing, 2 years later, maybe you've built enough equity through all your work in the property that now if you refinance it, you can do a traditional 20/80 loan, and there's 20% equity in there. You don't have to put any more cash in there. So there's different ways, but just kind of open your vision to the possibility of what you could do.
That's with one veteran. What if you have multiple veterans?
Then it works even better. Yeah, you can qualify for more with more veterans. One more questions? Any other questions?
With seller carry, is that something you as a buyer propose, or how do you find a place that's suitable for that?
10 years ago, I used to read all these books, and I was like, I don't know, seller carry, when we're just going to knock on all these doors. And yeah, once it started getting bold enough, you're not going to get anything you don't ask for. And so I certainly, on all these real estate deals, I certainly just start asking questions. So go up to the, on that note, there's another one. Go up to the realtor and say, what's your highest bid? It's like, I can't tell you that. On the property on our intentional community property, it's like, okay, if I was going to use you as my realtor, and you're going to make double the commission now, what would you advise me to come in at? I need to know if I could work with you. Well, You need to come in just over 900,000, you know? And so the process of asking for what you want in different ways, but in the seller carry loan, yeah, go up to the house and say, I've got a great proposal for you. This is sat for 18 months. It's not moving anywhere. My realtor, Yona, whoever, has looked up and says, this is free and clear. You've owned this, your family's owned it 30 years, you've got lots of equity. How'd you like to make a deal with me? You know, give me a couple of years to get another loan. I'll give you $80,000 down, or I'll put a bunch of work into it, no money, but I'm gonna work my butt off on this place, and then I'll pay you whatever the appraised value is in the future, or we'll agree. You know, you can do anything, really anything on a seller carry loan. You go up and you may get a lot of like, I'm not interested, but surprising on all these properties that sit there, I keep running into it. And as well, I'll show you a slide later where it's written in. You can go right online and see, oh, this person's willing to finance and stuff like that. So let's keep working
Moving through.
on this, and we can do more at the end.